Hello and welcome. My name is Mahtab Golab. Thank you for joining me as I review my final project for ESH 502, Health and the Built Environment. Today I will be discussing water infrastructure as social reform within the nation of Palestine. My MESH case study asks, how can we develop systems to support the socioeconomic and environmental health of Palestinians? It considers where may improvement in communities create not only equitable growth, but growth that is also sustainable. Currently, for Palestinians living in Gaza, quote, 90 to 95% of water supply is contaminated and unfit for human consumption, end quote. As of 1967, permits to construct new waterways must be approved by the Israeli military, and unfortunately, these are near impossible to receive. While I am still navigating the direction my project may take, what I have formulated currently is the need to improve the social infrastructures surrounding Palestinians' access to clean water. As such, the frameworks that have guided my paper thus far are both archival research and sustainable water infrastructure. Through archival research, I have been able to understand the history surrounding Palestine's illegal occupation since 1948, the context of policy surrounding their lack of sustainable development today, and finally, the future goals they have established for themselves. Water infrastructure, although a basic necessity, is severely lacking in Palestine and has stunted environmental stability, economic growth, and public health. With that in mind, finding ways to develop sustainable water systems would ideally lead to both social infrastructure development as well as social reform. The model I've chosen for my visual representation is the Palestinian olive tree, also called the zaytun. Before I further explain the choice behind this diagram to encapsulate my project and framework, I would like to briefly explain the significance of this image. The Office for the Cooperation of Human Affairs goes on to explain that culturally, quote, olive trees carry more than an economic significance in the life of Palestinians. They are not just like any other trees. They are symbolic of Palestinians' attachment to their land. Because the trees are drought resistant and grow under poor soil conditions, they represent Palestinian resistance and resilience. End quote. Environmentally, olive trees in Palestine date back 4 to 5,000 years, and every October and November, farmers and families get together as a community and pick these trees in a process called el-una, which means helping each other to harvest the same trees as their ancestors. Lastly, from a financial perspective, olive trees make up 70% of the fruit production in Palestine and contribute 14% to their economy. Therefore, the significance of choosing this tree as my visual representation lies in that through watering the olive trees, taking care of them as a community throughout the year, the time of harvest then ensures environmental, cultural, and economic future for Palestinians. Before we dive into the description of the visual representation, I would first like to provide a quick breakdown of its four parts. The first part are the roots of the tree. The second part is the tree trunk, which gives way to the third, which is the branches. And finally, we get to the fourth section of the tree, which are the olives themselves. So let's take a moment now to better understand the roots. The roots of the olive tree represent archival research. It is the space where one tries to understand the background of a problem and/or problems and help formulate the purpose of the research paper or case study. Essentially, the roots are, what are you studying and for what purpose? This is the time within the framework development where the writer formulates the research question. Next, we move on to the olive tree trunk and its branches. The trunk of the olive tree is the agent through which the background information from the roots develop into present-day environmental, social, and economic systems. Therefore, The trunk represents present-day policies that exist on local and global levels. It is the means through which the research paper and/or case study learns where growth, change, solutions, and/or support is needed. Policies studied and understood within the space are not always assumed to be bad, but rather it is the time to ask if such policies are making the most positive impact. If not, what is my role in improving that? Next, we move on to the branches. The branches are the framework of the research paper or case study actually put into action. It is the liminal space where ideas for social interventions and social reform are put forth to gauge if the problems identified in the roots and seen in practice through the trunk are able to grow into something that bears olives or not. Essentially, this is the space that allows you to move away from just written work and into real life to try to create measurable actions. The branches represent the goals the case study is working towards, hoping to achieve, and/or trying to establish and create. The branches are also the space where you start to gauge if your project is environmentally sustainable and what type of health outcomes it can produce. And as such, the presence of olives becomes the indicators in which the goals of the branches are measured. The olives are a form of accountability to represent the buildup of work, the intention of the project, and the goals set forth to see if they are amounting to something that is both equitable and sustainable. If indicators are not being met, then symbolically the olives may not be harvested, and the farmer, or in this case the individual conducting such research, must return to the roots and the trunk and tend to that liminal space as needed. Accountability is a key factor in this visual representation, and the olives help provide that space for accountability. So we have finally reached the point in the presentation where I can show you the visual representation of the framework of my project, the beautiful zaytun, the olive tree. Thank you for joining me in my presentation so far. I would now like to discuss the different parts of the tree and how they related to my research paper so far. First, we look to the roots, which I've noted are the archival research portion of this case study. Examples that I've found through my research are the 1917 pre-British Mandate Palestine, which discusses the occupation of Palestine by the British. Next, the 1948 genocide of Palestinians known as the Nakba. Next, the social development, economy, agriculture, and environmental health in Palestine pre-1948 occupation by Israel. The late 1948 poisoning of water wells and aquifers with typhoid by the Israeli military. The 1967 Military Order 158 that forbade new water infrastructure to be built without Israeli military approval. The 1967 occupation of West Bank and Gaza. And finally, the present-day indirect establishment of Gaza as an open-air prison and the subsequent health, sustainability, and development injustices that have come from this space. Next, I moved into the space of the trunk, which discusses the present-day policies that have shaped the development of Palestine and have impacted its health and sustainability. Such policies included the 1990s Oslo Accords, which were a failed peace and development agreement between Palestine and Israel, the Palestinian denial of full UN membership. Through various class assignments, I had the chance to understand the impact of water, specifically on public health and social determinants, understanding the impact of water loss on burdens of disease, mortality, and morbidity, understanding the impact of water on marriage, poverty, and the living environment, and understanding the lack of accountability in the UN in relation to SDG Goal 6, clean water access for all. In my time understanding the root causes of a lot of Palestine's problems today, and then subsequently understanding how those root issues fed into policies that surround their social, economic, and environmental development. I have now moved on to the branches, which is a space where I feel a call of action to support Palestinians' right to exist. This could be exemplified through this case study by first enrolling in programs such as this one that mesh social justice, engineering, public health, and sustainability together. Next, by reaching out to Palestinian organizations both in Palestine and the occupied territories, along with the US, to partner with them on projects that they currently have. This is the point in the visual I am currently at where I am formulating goals and I hope to give my attention to over the next few courses. While I look forward to the portion of my visual, which would be the olives, aka the indicators, they are not yet defined. The reason they are not yet defined is that I am now in the liminal space of creating the branches of this visual to create clear and defined goals that I want to attain throughout this case study, so that I can then create olives as the indicators to measure their success and be able to adjust and make changes where needed. Even though I am not there yet, I believe I am well on my way there. This final project asks us to reflect on several questions. The first being, identify where in your project you would need to make changes or additions to achieve the most positive impact on this project on the different levels of health and environmental sustainability. ESH 501 helped me establish the roots of my project so I could adequately explain the injustices the Palestinians face. ESH 502 has helped me move into the trunk of the tree as blog assignments, the SDG paper, the burden of disease assignment, as well as class discussions gave me the chance to study current policies surrounding the water and the impact it has on Palestinian life in the present. Specifically, I honed in on water's impact on policies surrounding marriage and mortality rates, lack of economic growth and international investment, and the shortcomings of UN policies and practice. I'm hoping as I progress through these next courses, I can start to formulate an actual project that will move my research paper into a case study. And this addition will then become the branches of my project. The additions I foresee needing to make are better understanding the regulations around water access in Palestine as of now. For example, finding data that shows how many, if any, new water infrastructures have been approved by the Israeli military every decade since 1967. What are the actual steps, rules, and permits the Palestinians need to obtain to build new infrastructure? And what are the costs of such permits and the cost of each step? In better understanding this, I can then start to make projections of project costs and what type of sustainable water systems are being offered around the world. There are a lot of new exciting water infrastructure systems being developed that do not require connection to irrigation systems. To be able and formulate the next steps of goals and branches, I would first need to better understand the current water policies in Palestine. The second reflection question asks, identify the specific changes or additions that you would or might need to make to your project. To accomplish these additions that I mentioned above specifically, I've applied to volunteer with an organization in Palestine whose mission is to create sustainability projects related to economic development and political advocacy. Thankfully, I was approved to partner with this organization called Community Development and Continuing Education Institute, CDCE. It is located in Bethlehem, Palestine, and I will be working with them over the next 8 months as their researcher. In these next 8 months, I hope to learn what projects their organization has in mind, specific to water advocacy, and to help them reach such goals. I plan on using the research I have done so far, along with the research they would like me to conduct, and will start to create goals, aka the branches of the tree. The volunteer program will ideally be extended after August and lead way into my capstone as I have been invited to meet their team in Palestine as well. Lastly, this project asks us to think how our visual representation will assist us to rethink and redesign our project to be able to yield healthy, sustainable impacts at all levels of analysis. So, as of now, the direction of my project is creating water systems for Palestinians that are controlled by them and not another government. That being said, I believe a larger part of advocacy is turning to the communities themselves and letting them guide you in what support they want. I will present to CDCE my research, goals, and indicators, but the reality is they may inform me that my direction is not attainable at the moment, or that I may need to create new indicators that are reasonable and sustainable within their means. Therefore, over the next 8 months, I need to remain open to not only reworking and adapting the branches and olives of this image, but also strengthening the roots as I conduct more research for this organization. There is a wealth of knowledge and information on the history of Palestine, and I believe the more that I can share their story, the more advocacy I can help garner for their projects. Over the next two classes for the spring term, we are going to be learning engineering sustainable food and engineering sustainable water. I'm really excited to see what I can learn from these two courses that will hopefully support the development of the branches of this tree. Now that we've come to the end of this presentation, if you have a moment, please take some time to watch this video titled Gaza's Water Crisis. Thank you. I have enjoyed studying with everyone during these last two courses. I wish everyone a wonderful vacation and break, and I look forward to studying with you again this upcoming spring. Thank you.